to the Private Practice Growth Club YouTube channel. If you're new here, I'm Tasneem Abrahams. I'm the founder of the Private Practice Growth Club, and on this channel I share tips, tools and tutorials for health professionals starting and growing a private practice in South Africa. Now, I know there are many of you who are working in government jobs, either for the Department of Health or the Department of Education, whatever the case may be, but you really want to have your own practice. Now, a good way to get started is to start your practice as a side hustle. However, there is a very important legal requirement you need to be aware of as an employee in public service, whether temporary or permanent, before starting your side hustle. And mind you, this is even if the side hustle you start is not a private practice. Maybe you want to start a business selling clothes. Maybe you want to start a marketing business. Whatever the case may be, if you are starting a business outside of your usual job working hours, you need to know about something called the RWOPS. Now, what is the RWOPS? Well, in this video, I'm going to be explaining what the RWOPS is, who needs one and why, and what are the implications if you start a practice or a side hustle without it. But before we get into that, I want to give a quick shout out and say thank you to Scrub Therapy for sponsoring this video. Scrub Therapy was founded by a physiotherapist during the hard lockdown. As a health professional wearing scrubs, she realized the need for comfortable, good quality scrubs, and that's how Scrub Therapy started. Scrub Therapy is a local, proudly South African, female-owned business sourcing fabrics from local suppliers. You can find them at www.scrubtherapy.co.za or on Instagram at scrub.therapy. All the links are also in the description box below. Now, speaking of health professionals starting side businesses, the owner of Scrub Therapy is also in private practice. But if she was working in the public service, be that national, provincial or district level, she would have definitely needed an RWOPS before starting her business. So what is an RWOPS? Well, RWOPS stands for Remuneration for Work Outside the Public Service. Essentially, it is a legal requirement for anyone working in the public service to obtain permission to perform remunerative work outside one's employment. There are two main reasons why employees have to obtain permission. The first reason is about allowing departments to manage the possibility of other remunerative work performed by the employees, which could create a potential, perceived, or actual conflict of interest. The second reason is about preventing other remunerative work from impacting negatively on the conduct of public service employees and from interfering with or impeding the effective and efficient performance of the employee. As public service employees, you are required to put the public good above private interests and to dedicate your time and energy to produce quality service for the benefit of the people of the country. If this does not happen, the public may experience poor service delivery and the reputation of the public service may be dented. It's therefore necessary to provide guidance to employees in the public service to understand their role when engaging in other remunerative work, but also to guide departments to understand their role in managing the occurrence of other remunerative work in the work environment. For this reason, the Department of Public Service and Administration, also known as the DPSA, developed the Guide on Managing Other Remunerative Work in the Public Service, which you can download via the link in the description box below. The purpose of this guide is to guide employees in the public service to demonstrate good judgment and to avoid conflicts of interest when performing other remunerative work. The guide also standardizes the interpretation of the directive on other remunerative work outside the employee's employment in the relevant department in terms of Section 60 of the Public Service Act of 1994, and the guide provides guidance to departments to manage other remunerative work performed by their employees. It doesn't, however, address the conducting of business with an organ of state or the state. That is a whole other matter on its own, which I will not be getting into in this video. Now, in order to understand the concept of other remunerative work, one has to understand what is meant with the concept work and remuneration. In the guide, the Oxford Dictionary definition of work is cited as an activity involving mental or physical effort done in order to achieve a result. The guide goes further to say that in order to achieve a result, this effort is usually executed within a specific time frame. And this is important to note as public service employees are expected to deliver a specific service over a specific period of time for which they receive remuneration in the form of a salary. So what is remuneration? In terms of Regulation 16 of the Public Service Regulations Act of 2016, which is linked to the performance of other remunerative work, means any payment or benefit in cash or in kind. Thus, remuneration for other remunerative work may involve the payment of allowances or a payment of benefit in cash or in kind. Based on the two concepts explained before, work and remuneration, other remunerative work can therefore be defined as any work performed by an employee outside his or her employment in the relevant department for which a fee, allowance, payment or benefit for services rendered is made. So even if within your department, if you are paid by another department still within the public service, that is still considered work outside of your normal employment. So it does not include receiving passive income though, such as rent received from property, or maybe you own shares in a company and you earn dividends from that. That's not included. It also doesn't include work that you perform without remuneration. So for example, if you do volunteer work outside of your normal work hours, that is not considered work for remuneration outside of public service. So if your side hustle falls into this category of remunerative work outside of your public service employment, even if you are only conducting this business outside your work hours, and even if you are self-employed, you are still legally required to request written permission before doing so. This includes getting paid to supervise students, marking reports or clinical exams, any activity that requires you to exchange your time for money would be considered remuneration for work outside of public service. But now let's say you are only thinking about starting a business or a private practice and you're not quite sure. You're still in the research phase, or perhaps you are starting to put the groundwork in place to get everything ready, but you are not yet ready to take on patients and you are not receiving remuneration. Do you still need an RWOPS? Well, the guide recommends that you should go ahead and apply for permission anyway, because if such work does not materialize and you never get paid for it, you stand nothing to lose. You just have the permission anyway. On the other hand, if you proceed to perform the work without the necessary permission, it would constitute misconduct and non-compliance to Section 30 of the Public Service Act of 1994. So now that you know that you have to apply, how do you do it? Well, step 1 is the application. You will need to complete an application form, which you can obtain from your relevant HR department, or you can download it from the link in the description box below. And then you need to submit this to the ethics office for processing. If you are not sure how or where to send it to the ethics office, or who the ethics office is, or who the ethics officer is, I would advise you to speak to your HR department and find out how you can submit this form. Once you've submitted your application, you should receive an acknowledgement letter and a stamp of the copy of the submitted form. This marks the 30-day period, the start of the 30-day period to obtain permission from your executive authority. This 30-day period is important because if the executive authority fails to respond within that 30-day period, it will be automatically deemed approved and permission granted. However, if approval is granted by default in this way, permission must still be evaluated and can be withdrawn at any time if a conflict of interest is detected. Now, step 2 is the processing of the application, which is now out of your hands. During this process, the ethics officer will gather comments and information where they see relevant based on your application. And they might get this information from your supervisor or your HR manager, where they will ask for comments on your performance at work and whether this additional role you are taking on might impact negatively on your work performance. The ethics officer needs to identify any actual, perceived, or potential conflicts of interest that may arise. The ethics officer then submits the report with or without recommendations to the delegated authority on the matter. The third step is then when the decision is finally made. The delegated authority will make the final decision either to grant permission or to decline your request. And finally, step 4 is when you receive your feedback. If your request is declined, you should receive a response in writing with reasons for your application being declined. If your application is approved, however, you will receive a signed form and an RWOPS certificate, which is valid for 12 months or for the duration of your current post at the time of approval. In other words, you will have to reapply for permission every 12 months, or if you are promoted, transferred or appointed in a different department, you will have to reapply. So for example, if you work for one school and you get the RWOPS and you're doing a private practice on the weekends, and now you are transferred or you get a job at a different school still within the public service, you will have to reapply based on your new position. Or if you are working in the Department of Health and now you move over to the Department of Education, as long as you are changing positions, or even if you are being promoted from a post level 1 to now suddenly you are the vice principal or the deputy head or whatever the case may be, you will have to reapply when your new post comes into effect. The ethics officer should also ensure that all copies are sent to the HR department to be filed in your personal file and that all your relevant information is captured on the PASEL system. And there you have it. If you are thinking of starting a private practice or any other business and you are already in full-time employment with the state, it is absolutely a smart move to start your practice on the side and only resign from your day job once it makes financial sense for you to do so. However, it is super important that you make sure you abide by your contractual obligations with the state. You will find that when trying to register with the Board of Healthcare Funders and the PCNS for a practice number, they will be able to pick up if you are currently employed in public service and will in any case not issue you with a number without an RWOPS certificate. I hope you found this video helpful. Remember that all the links to the downloads are in the description box below. Don't forget to like, subscribe and hit the bell for notifications of more videos like this. And also remember to check out Scrub Therapy if you would like to find out more about their affordable, good quality scrubs.